Hello guys, and here I am back after this short summer break. Today I want to tell you a truly incredible story, that of Paul Amadeus Dinach, a man who in 1921 fell victim to a rare disease and went into a coma because of it, would have had the opportunity to live for an entire year, in 3906, or at least that's what he claimed. His experience was recounted in a diary kept secret until his death, and in it would be enclosed the future of humanity. So here is Paul Amadeus Dienach, the man who claimed to have lived in the year 3906, his secret diary. Not much is known about Paul. He lived in Central Europe for most of his life and studied to become a German professor. In 1921, as I was saying, he fell victim to a rare disease, lethargic encephalitis, an inflammatory brain disease that led him into a coma. He remained hospitalized in a Geneva hospital for more than a year, but against all odds, he managed to recover. With the intention of improving his health conditions, he decided to move to a place characterized by a milder climate and chose Greece. There he had the opportunity to teach German and became great friends with one of his students, Papa Aziz. The following year, however, his health drastically worsened. He contracted tuberculosis and decided to go to Italy, where he could receive better treatment. However, he knew he didn't have much time left, and before he left, he handed Papa Aziz a briefcase containing an impressive number of handwritten pages. Paul told his friend that he could read them, but only after he was gone, and not to reveal to anyone the contents of them. In 1924, Paul died, and Papa Aziz decided it was time to find out what those mysterious pages said. He began to translate them and at first thought that his professor had left him the notes of a novel. But the more he read, the more he realized that what he had in his hands was not the product of imagination, but he realized it was a real experience lived by Paul while he was in a coma in a Geneva hospital, a diary in which a truly impressive experience was reported. Dinach recounted that once he fell into a coma, his consciousness would have projected into the mind of another man, a certain Andrew Northam, who would have shown him his world. The most incredible thing, however, is that Andrew lived in the year 3906, and through his eyes, Paul would have been able to discover the fate of humanity. The translation of the diary was carried out from 1926 to 1940. It was more than 1,000 pages that were not always easy to interpret correctly. During the Second World War, Papazi stopped working and started again in 1952. The translation was completed in 1966. And not knowing what to do with all that information, Paul's friend decided to go to Zurich in search of a relative of Dinach, to whom to deliver the entire manuscript, but he found no one. And unable to keep the secret to himself, he decided to share it within a small circle of Freemasons. Impressed by the revelations contained in the diary, Papazi's was considered a sort of prophet of the modern era. And in 1972, he thought it was time to tell the world what Paul had revealed in his diary. In the same year, he published a book, Chronicles from the Future, containing the entire experience told by. But this triggered a terrible reaction from the church, which accused the author of heresy. Pope Aziz lost his job and almost all copies of the book were destroyed. He tried to publish it again in 1979, but even then, the harsh criticism led to its disappearance. But what did that work say? What were the great revelations about the future of humanity? Well, reporting all the details told by Paul in those 1,000 pages of diary is not simple. But here below, I will summarize the most important points for you. Here's what would await us, according to Dinach, in the future. From 2000 to 2300, humanity will have to face an increasingly serious problem of overpopulation. Ecological destruction, economic inequality, and lack of nourishment in many parts of the world will be the major concerns of this era. In 2204, mankind will be able to colonize Mars. 20 million people will move to the extraterrestrial colony. But in 2265, a natural disaster will lead to the disappearance of all the colonists. And humanity will forever abandon the idea of living on a planet other than Earth. In 2309, a war will lead to the disappearance of a large part of humanity, representing a significant turning point for our civilization. In 2396, a world parliament will be established, and all nations will be unified. The parliament will be elected by the people, but it will not be made up of politicians, but rather scientists and humanitarian figures. Money, as we know it today, will no longer exist, and resources on the planet will be redistributed equitably. Overpopulation issues and climate-related problems will be resolved. Life will be easier, and we won't have to work as hard as in the past. The years will start to be counted again from number 1. But this new form of world government will not be accepted by everyone. Being a totalitarianism, it will raise harsh criticism from representatives of previous national governments. National consciousness will still be largely present and will make it difficult to establish a planetary consciousness. It will take 2 to 5 centuries before this concept of belonging to a nation changes, and until 3400, people will talk about the dark age of humanity. In 3382, humans will develop a new ability called hypervision or hyperintuition due to a mutation in a part of the brain. Thanks to this, the human race will be open to creativity and knowledge in all fields as it has never been before. In 3900, humans will live in a new era called the Golden Age. Members of the government will be defined as universal creators. Private property will no longer exist, and the only inequalities between individuals will have to do with honor and reputation. Importance will be given to the mental, emotional, and spiritual development of people, and not to their material wealth anymore. The world population will be reduced to less than 1 billion individuals, and one will only work for 2 years in their entire life, from 17 to 19. There will only be 3 types of laws: those that establish the obligation to work from 17 to 19 years of age, those that establish the methods of redistribution of goods, and those for birth control, aimed at avoiding overpopulation problems. As you can imagine, the story told by Dinach in her diary was mostly considered an invention or the result of hallucinations due to illness. But Papa Aziz stated that his professor would never be able to deceive him. Moreover, her diary was not intended for publication, but only wanted to be a faithful account of what he took during this peculiar journey through time. Personally, analyzing in detail what Paul described, it almost seems that he wanted to portray an ideal world, an existence that would solve all the major problems we have to face these days. Perhaps here we are facing an intimate desire of Paul, told in a way that made Papazi's believe it was a real fact. But these are only hypotheses that can no longer be confirmed. The truth was known only to Paul, and now it must remain a mystery. But what do you think? Did Dinah really travel through time and share her experience? Or are the chronicles from the future just the product of a vivid imagination? Let me know your opinion in a comment. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like or share it with your friends. Greetings and see you in the next video of the unexplainable.